I'd like to call to order the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting of July 8th. The time is 11:13. We have listed on our website the Zoom meeting for the public to be able to join. Roll call. Please say here after I call your name. Stephanie Lyle.
Here.
Jeannie Wellman.
Here.
Second guy, get rid of this thing over. Okay. Janae Matan.
Here.
And James Carrier.
Here.
Great. And we've got the Mayor Kuhn. We will have our tourism director join us shortly, Laura. And we have an excused absence from Sue Brayton. And I'm not sure on John Moist. Do you know, Josh?
I haven't heard from him. Mary said she has the farmer's market, so she won't be here.
Okay, so Mary's has the farmer's market, and we haven't heard from John. And we have our assistant city clerk, Josh Stecker.
Here.
I hope everyone, I went over the minutes yesterday with Laura. I wanted to get the minutes, have her get the minutes out before, so everyone had time to look at them. Hopefully everyone has reviewed the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 10th? No, the June, wait a minute. Yeah, the June 10th meeting.
I move to accept the minutes on the June 10th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ginny seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? June 10th meeting's approved. We have a 15-minute OPMA video that's required. Please stay awake and we will proceed to listen to it.
All right, I'm gonna do a share screen and try to show the video. I haven't tried it with YouTube this way, so hopefully there aren't any hiccups, but let me know if it stops playing for you.
And most of you can enlarge your screen and it probably used to all this, so can do that.
Hi, I'm Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson. Joining me in this video is our Open Government Assistant Attorney General, Nancy Crear. This training video provides an overview of the Open Public Meetings Act for both the general public and for public agencies. It is intended to provide a greater
Josh, we got a glitch.
What was that?
There's a glitch. The guy's moving his mouth, but we can't hear him.
Okay, let me try that again.
and government more responsive. The purpose
Is that
of the
working
act
now?
is to provide the public
Yes.
access to information concerning the conduct of state and local government. The law is based on the principle that open government is essential to a free society.
Yes, go ahead, Josh. I'm gonna call him. This isn't working very well, Josh.
Okay, then I guess plan B is I will send everyone the link and we'll just call this homework. I'll send you an email with the link and I'll have each of you watch it and just send me an email when you've completed it, and that should be good enough to satisfy our requirements with the state.
Okay, that sounds great. So please send it on to the people that were not able to make it. And do, as well as myself, please let everyone know that they do need to respond that they've seen it.
Yep.
Okay. And with that, I'm going to give Laura a call. Okay, she'll be here any second. So, Josh, are you putting up the attachment one? Or is that Laura?
I think that'll be Laura because I haven't seen that yet.
Okay. Was it, were all of you sent the attachment ahead of time? Okay,
Yes.
okay, so we're on a review lodging tax fund, estimate of 200,000 for 2021 review in total. We're already outpacing that. And this is by the month. We have, I take it all of you have your own copy since we don't have it up on the screen yet. I'm just looking at this myself. 2021. So yeah, obviously the numbers are a lot better than 2020. So that's good. So we are on board. Do I have any questions on this? Again, I'm kind of going on because Laura's not here yet. We all have things to do. Any questions by anyone?
I don't, it's not necessarily a question, although it's kind of a question. I think that this documentation is really interesting and very helpful. I know that there was some discussion about looking at the entire fund and what the balance was in the entire fund. And is that something that we will see as well?
Yes. There, 531. Yes, we will get that to you, as we will be also talking soon about next year's budget.
Mhm.
So that will be a great time to have both those.
Yeah.
Okay. I will make note of that for Laura. Thank you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
There also should be the general ledger that you should have as well.
Hi, can anyone see me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. We will have to fix that. This has happened a couple of times. I'm not sure why, but I needed to log in with another account in order to even be let into the Zoom. So we'll figure that out for next time.
Okay, we went over the lodging tax by the month of the other sheet, the graph and everything. And then this is perfect time to put this up. I'll let Stephanie ask a question of looking at the whole year budget. And then I did mention, will we get to see that soon? And I did mention that, it is coming up to budget time. So that would be, yes, we will provide the whole thing as we're going to be working on next year's budget as well.
Okay.
So just to clarify, this particular document that is on the screen right now, this is the allocation that was allocated to the city from the lodging tax fund as part of the grant round. Is that what I understand?
This is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's the operating budget for this past year and where we're at
Okay.
currently. in
Can I
this
ask a
period.
couple of really dumb questions? So
No
I'm
question's a
done.
dumb question.
I just realized what it is. So this period amount is just for the month of May.
Yeah.
And then ending balance, is that a year-to-date amount?
I believe so,
spent?
yeah.
Okay, that doesn't, okay. That's not a very good descriptor, but okay. So year-to-date expenditure is really what that is.
Correct.
Cool, okay, thanks. So why have we so significantly underspent the budget for the year? I guess tourism,
Well, it's,
advertising,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's essentially based on
yeah,
whether or not we could go out, and now we have our
Right.
full force of digital marketing happening, so we will
Yeah,
release it
okay.
year. We probably won't make our full budget, but we're gonna do our darndest and spend where we need to.
We also, I know this goes on every year, but we were planning on having another assistant to Laura. And that got delayed in our union. So that had to clear a lot of hurdles with the union in order to go out to bid. So every time you plan a job, you have to lay out all the job title, the description and everything like that. And then you have to give that to the union and they have to bargain that. And it's a long process. And Laura, do you know where we are? Is that posted yet?
No, I spoke with Tony about it yesterday and we're gonna just see how quickly we can get that out there. I know there's been some great submissions from this advisory committee on people that may be good fits. And I appreciate that 100%. Operating as my own assistant is not great. I'm not a great assistant to myself. Yeah, so it is hopefully on the fast track. That will really increase the bandwidth of what we can do as a department and how we can actualize a lot of the plans that we have.
Right. So we have money there as I'm also pointing out that wasn't spent for 6 months. So.
Correct.
But when it happens, we're not going for a 1.5, which is what we were going to do a couple years ago. We're going for 2. So 2 FTEs.
Oh,
That'll be
Which-
great. And it's also, it really helps us recruit a higher caliber of talent when we can offer a full-time position. So that is going to be great.
mhm.
And I think, well, Laura, most of all, but all of us will feel the benefit of having 2 people as opposed to just 1. We also just, Josh did some help with Laura, and now Josh is trying to do a little bit of 2 people as well. And we've given some of Josh's duties to other people, but Josh can't quite help Laura in the capacity that he was trying to do before. Again, we're not alone. If you read any national magazines, everyone's struggling to fulfill. I've seen signs of Dairy Queen saying we're closed 2 days a week because lack of personnel. Woodby Island, there's a lot of stores there that they can't even fill their jobs. When they had a job fill, no one showed up. So it's soon you're not going to get paid for not working. So anyway,
This
turn
is
it
a
back to
great
Laura.
job and what it provides somebody and the amount of experience it gives, as well as the benefits and everything else. So I don't think we'll have a problem recruiting on this one. And I hope that it does go quickly.
Laura, I'm going to let you go ahead and go through the thing, and we're down to the review, I believe, of 2021.
Okay, we already have and I'm taking minutes on this, so I will recap just prior, or just after, but have we done a call to order in the just attendance?
Yep. Yeah. And
Okay, and we've
the
got,
video people, Josh is going to send that out to everyone, and everyone's going to respond that they've read it. And we
Great.
don't know why John's not here, but we do have excuse from Sue and Mary.
wonderful, okay. I'm just gonna make sure I have the correct agenda up. Here we go. Okay, so we went through, we are reviewing the 2021 LTAC allocation process. As you may recall, we made a recommendation through to City Council on how this should go, including the heightened amount, as well as the cap on awards in order to allocate this out fairly and reasonably to the maximum number of recipients. We have a deadline coming up to submit a long-term proposal. I think both in line with reviewing how this past year went, and also putting in our future years vision, essentially. I know that we want to remain around the same allocation, and I know that we've said that that should potentially be tied to the balance in the fund. I think stair-stepping that is appropriate. I think that, going from something like $30,000 a year that we were giving out maybe 2 or 3 years ago to 125 is a great leap. I am comfortable with keeping it at 125 for now. I think you all know we did not see a massive amount of applicants that would support raising it at this point. If we get to that point, that's something that we can consider. But I'm comfortable with that for right now. And I think that's the highest benefit that we have in the funds that we're giving out on that side of things on our grant process. I'm satisfied that we had new entries this year. I'm glad to see that we have more events happening, which is really what our purpose is to create new ways to drive in tourism to Gig Harbor and also maintain the draws that we have that are massively valuable. So I would love to hear your feedback. I know one point of feedback that I've received thus far is that we shouldn't do 2 calls. We should only do 1. And I think in normal years, that's more than fine. Yeah, I'd love your feedback. I'd love to know what you thought about this past year, and we will integrate that into figuring out what that's going to look like going forward.
Go ahead,
Jenny
Jenny.
Wellen.
You're
Wait,
muted.
Sorry. Isn't the process, I mean, isn't the new round of applications coming in, what time of the year do we normally do that? Is it September?
We're going to start in late August, keep it open through, isn't that, Josh, what did we talk about yesterday?
Well, yeah, that's what we.
Yeah, ideally, you want to have your applicants recommended before council gets the budget October 1st. So you want to
So we
try to
would
work
need to
backwards so
review.
that you can approve the applications at your September meeting. So
Right.
maybe having the application window for the month of August is probably a good target.
Do we have a requirement on the window of applications that needs to be open?
There's no requirement. It's just whatever makes it easier for council and staff to get the budget approved.
What I'd like to do is, I'd like to get this out in early August. So again, not to jump in head, Ginny, but maybe this answers a couple questions. We used before I was mayor, we were doing 40,000, and now we're doing 125. So I think we've done a really good job. When we do have, it does take time, but when we do have a full assistant for Laura, I think we can really, really be able to ramp up our tourism spending and do a lot more, which I think we all look forward to. So I guess I'm saying I don't really want to increase the 125. I like the 125. I like the 25,000 at the most per grant. It doesn't mean that you can't apply for more than one grant, but the grant itself is 25,000. And but what I just told Josh an hour ago at another meeting is we can't put that grant out there until we've basically brought that to council to let them know that. So, and we only have one council meeting in August, and I don't want to wait till August, because if Laura tells council on the 26th, which we just put on the calendar an hour ago, put on the July 26th council meeting, that Laura would report about that if LTAC supports running it the same, then the goal is this group can get that out right in August. And I'd like to give a longer period of time for the applicants. I think the applicants got a month, and I want to, as Stephanie mentioned before, I want to make sure that there's no crack. There's no good organizations that fall through the cracks. And
Yeah.
so that means letting them maybe have 2 months to apply, or 6 weeks, and really maybe never everyone doesn't hear on the first week or 2, but make it so that we get it out the beginning of August so that they have till late September. And I think it's going pretty well. And so I'd hate to play with it so much that we delay that, but
Yeah,
okay,
I wasn't suggesting a change. I was just wondering how much time people would have to get the word out to everybody.
Right.
And, making sure that we really circulate in the community that this is going to be open. So that was my only point, was
No, and-
just trying to ask
So-
what the
And I
time.
knew you weren't. I just want to let you know, that little what we're thinking.
So
I appreciate
July,
that.
it goes to council to say that what the cap is, and on individual awards, plus what the full amount that we can distribute is. And then after that, it can be advertised in the community and it'll be available for people. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Yep, and I'll go out hard. We had a really great media outreach this last second round, which we dialed in a little bit further. And I'm satisfied with the way that went. I'm also going to lean on you as well, not just you, Gig Harbor now, but everybody to reach out to their network and encourage people to apply.
Well, the cool thing is Gig Harbor now may be active by that point in time, so yay.
One media source down, several to go. Wonderful. Thank
I
you.
do have a question about this whole process because I know I am one of the greatest critics of having caps and having such a small portion of a very large fund being allocated to grants. Now, I know I'm sort of an anonymous, there is a discrepancy in the types of organizations that this fund supports. And I personally am a little bit concerned about some of the organizations that are were able to get PPP this year and other forms of COVID relief funding that will not be available next year. And I do think if we have room in this budget to provide, kind of a post-COVID relief operations fund, because I've been talking to some of the folks on Bainbridge Island and they were able to apply for either marketing dollars or operating dollars if they operated a tourism serving facility. A number of organizations do, some of them just run events. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of the types of things that this fund can actually support. So I just think it's something that we as a committee need to think about because there won't be that COVID relief fund probably next year. And, quite honestly, maybe you can correct me on this, but I know the city did, some relief on some of the utilities last year, but there really hasn't been much trickle down from, federal funding to local funding in terms of COVID relief. So, and maybe this is not a thing for some people, but if the fund is doing well, and I know that there have been times when we've looked at the bottom line of this fund, that's it's close to $1 million, and other communities are spending more of their money to support many of these organizations that do a lot of good things for their communities. So that's why I feel strongly that we need to look at this as a whole, not just what can the city do for everybody, but what can this fund do for everybody to help support the entire community and all of these organizations that work so hard to create just an incredible place for people to visit and to live. So I'm just making a pitch for that. And we can think seriously about that as we look at the bottom line for the entire budget.
Right. I do know that a lot of businesses that did get state and federal funds. In fact, the Best Western did. So there are a lot. I do want to make sure, I had heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, I had heard that the museum had said, well, if we get this grant, we can be open more often. Yeah, I had heard that the museum said if we get a grant, which you received, we'll be allowed to be open more. And yet the city's paying for free admission. So that's just a rumor I heard, and correct me if that was not correct.
Well, the city does a grant that's $30,000 a year for free admission, aside from LTAC. It is not part of LTAC. That particular grant funds about 5,000 people a year. And we have already hit that number this year. So you're really, the city, that particular grant funds, our visitors, which is fantastic. The LTAC fund is helping with marketing, which we are doing a lot of this fall because we couldn't really plan very much for, summer specifically until we knew what the COVID what the COVID measures would be in terms of lifting COVID restrictions. So, but marketing dollars are marketing dollars. They don't have to do with the numbers of days that you can be open or the numbers of people that come through your door.
Okay. I also want to make sure that just so you're aware, I want to have us do you know, Laura knows that we want to do a lot better job, and we want to first, when we get the applications, if an application is wrong and if there's an error, we want to be able to let that person know and review that application prior to the cutoff date so that they're able to resubmit in another form. Now, that's actually being nice, because when I usually, through my life, when I've applied for things, if it was wrong, they didn't tell me I could correct. I just lost. But we're different than that. We're a community-based organization. And so we want to give that person a chance to maybe, hey, you know, it doesn't work for this, apply for something else. And then we really need to get you the applications 3 to 5 days prior to reviewing of it, so that you have full time to look at that. Go ahead, Laura.
I'm gonna add to that. So I'm gonna take a page from my pal Janae Delk, who's the executive director of the Community Economic Revitalization Board, who literally acts as a Sherpa for people applying for those grant funds and says, this is what's great about your application. This is what's not. I am very excited also to have our guest from MRSC to go through exactly what our parameters are on these, so that it's clear for all exactly what we're approving, exactly what we can't approve. And for me to be able to be that Sherpa throughout the August application process, because to be quite honest, in the first year, I wasn't sure. I had a feeling on some of them, but it's always great to have, you know, a hardcore guidance on that. And Josh, you have been fantastic on that. We also just like to kick the can to MRSC rather than say Josh said no. So that's going to be helpful for us. I think it's going to be helpful for everyone here on the Zoom and this committee. And that is my intention too, that we don't get any applications that aren't valid. If we do, we offer them the opportunity to make them valid. I know we had some concerns this past application window because it was our second application window, and because we, you know, these were new people that had applied. Everyone who's got repeated funds is very well aware of the process, and those applications are always wonderful. But we do have a responsibility to guide our people through, our new applicants through. So I think that'll make it easier on everybody. A little more work on the upfront. This is where that assistant comes in again. Yeah, that's our goal.
So I'd like to see if there's support of letting Laura move forward at the 26th council meeting with the same format that we've done for 2022, so that we can proceed to make our August deadline. Josh, should we put that in a motion should we put that format in a motion?
You could put it in a motion. You're just basically advising staff that that's what you recommend. It's not really an LTAC.
Okay.
Something that LTAC would authorize.
I'd like to make a motion that LTAC supports doing the same format of a once a year, $125,000 grants, $25,000 max, and same format as we did last year, but extend the window time of the applications to be in, and try to get that out first part of August, so they have towards the end of September to apply. Yes,
I want to clarify there, we would need to approve these by the September LTAC meeting. So our window would need to close by first week of September at latest, right?
well, let's have a special meeting, because then we're back to not giving enough time for applicants. So we would have a special meeting maybe around the 20th of September or so. I've always wanted things to happen and then they get pushed. And so I want that early August deadline to really happen as best as possible.
I have a question.
Let's first, to do the question, I need a second. Do I have a second for my motion? And then we can have the questions.
I second.
Okay. Discussion. Go ahead, Stephanie. Sorry, I've done enough council meetings that you can't talk about something unless you've actually got it on the floor.
Yeah, and I wasn't ready to second the motion as it was stated.
Sure.
Because you have mentioned a couple of times a $25,000 cap. I believe it's 20,000.
Okay,
And unless that's going to change.
no,
But I think what you're proposing is that we stay with the format, not just of the application, but of the amounts that we have discussed, which defies the purpose of trying to have a meeting to discuss the entire budget of the LTAC and the allocations thereof, which we railroaded through last year. And I don't really feel comfortable doing that this year. So maybe I'm just a thorn in the side of everyone here, but I just have to advocate for looking closely at this budget. And I don't mean just the city portion of it, and I don't mean just the grant portion of it. I mean all the rest of it. If there's allocations to reserve, if there are allocations to other things other than what is, on what we consider the radar screen in terms of grants and city expenditures, I think we have to look at the big picture and look at percentages. Maybe that doesn't help the process at this point, but I think we have to do that at some point. Yeah.
I will say on 2 items there. So go ahead, Jenny.
I would say I agree with Stephanie as well. I would like to understand, I'd like to, we put off till this August meeting, this conversation with whoever it is, the organization. that's
RSC.
gonna come- Yes, who's going to come and talk with us, and seeing the overall, what is the entire fund, not just, what we're going to bring in this year. I want to see what the entire fund is and how we can spend that. And so I do feel a little bit uncomfortable putting that cap on at this point in time without having that information. So I just wanted to say, I do tend to agree with what Steph is saying.
I'll make 1 or 2 points there just on the allocation of the fund in total. We have, and I think I've presented it to this committee as well, but we have the kind of the pie chart of what percentage goes to each. And there's a fairly even application of marketing costs, grant costs, and others. And we do see extended benefits for the city marketing us as a destination. There's a trickle down effect of that marketing that impacts everybody. So that is also beneficial to all of our grant applications and those people who didn't apply or who aren't, valid for that. I do want to be cautious in that financial review and remind us of the purpose here. This is an advisory committee for the point of giving your input into the budget, not a final budget approval. And that is an important delineation to make. Not that your, opinion and perspective is not incredibly important and does not help guide us, but those are key financial decisions for the longevity of this department, as well as our total marketing and the other, return on investment points for the lodging tax fund, which is generation of tourism and DMO services. So we do have to take a look at that as well. And that's something to consider. The information is transparent, and we're always open to discuss that and get input on that. Final financial decisions for long term remain with the city.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say that, I don't have any problem with the city and, them doing the marketing and all of that stuff you guys do. You, Laura, you do a great job. And, and I don't have any beef with that. I just, I have been actually kind of doing a study across some other communities of similar size to see, how they support their cultural institutions and how they, what are we looking like comparatively to other similar types of communities. And how do they manage their LTAC dollars? It is quite different in various places. There are sometimes when the advisory committee just assembles to review the grant program and allocate funds. There are other allocations within that LTAC for very specific facilities within, the purview of that community. So this is one model. There are other models around the state. And I'm just saying that it would be interesting to take a closer look at that. If that's not a priority for this entire committee, then, I will stand down. But I feel like it's public money and we need to be very judicious about it. I'm not saying that we're not being, I just think there could be other models for distribution. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, and I think MRSC is going to help with that. And August was their first availability to train us.
Yeah.
So that's why it's been pushed off. Not my choice. I would have rather had it done last month. But I'm also very, very open to being a part of that continued conversation with you, Stephanie, on your research for other communities and listening to that and figuring out what are good practices and what may not apply for our community well.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of different needs throughout the state and a lot of different communities and draws and a lot of different challenges. And we have a couple, you know, so I'm always open to hearing that and discussing that just as an ongoing conversation.
Sounds good.
All right, where are we?
Well, I was actually thinking if there was more discussion, I was actually going to reach out to Dave Rodenbach and see if when we really have to get this in, to see if there was a time frame to hear from MRC before we decided all this, and see if there was a time to push some of this to October.
Mayor, if I could, the time frame that you're looking at, what you need from council is you need the authority to put on the application that the grants, they can't request more than 20,000, because without council approving that, we don't have the authority to do that. So that's what we're discussing now. So the time frame is just how long can we wait to put out the applications?
Right.
Without asking council first.
Well, my question is if we waited till, you know, I hear what Stephanie and Ginny are saying. If we heard from MSC in August, and then we extended and then we put out the applications in September, and or maybe even late August, but then we had till October, the first week or so of October, to decide it, to spend a little longer looking at this. Would that still be okay with our budget cycle?
It works with our budget cycle because we will adopt the actual recommendations by resolution separate from the budget. It's just problematic for adopting the budget when you don't know how much money you're going to be giving away in grants. Because you want to have that in the budget books, at least saying we're going to give 125,000 in grants.
Right. Would you, so I guess I'm asking Stephanie and Ginny, because you both spoke. Would you be okay with the amount of 125, but let us hear from MRC a little bit more on the structure of that, of what they give us to be able to then allow to extend it to early October to wait for that? Would that help for some of that?
So I guess I'm a little confused here about what we're actually, so is this something that has to be voted on by council every year? The amount of the grants individually and the overall amount of grants that needs to be, that we can allow for? Or is it because it's part of the budget that we have to get approval from council? I'm a little unclear on what we're talking about.
So yeah, it does need to be approved by council either as a policy or every year. And we took it to council last year.
Okay.
For the first time, and we proposed it as an every year policy or something that would be perpetual. And what council drafted in their resolution that they approved was that they would approve the $125,000 limit for 2021. And then they asked LTAC to bring back a formal policy for future years. And they wanted that policy by June 1st. But obviously, we're not at that point yet.
So they want us to put a cap on the total amount of grants going forward forever, starting.
They want some kind of a policy that determines either a flat cap or a percentage, or
So
that's what they asked for.
They'll ask for a percentage then.
Yeah, I think it's up to LTAC to determine how they want that to look.
Right, and forever is just, Ginny, forever is just until another resolution comes.
Okay, yeah, all right. Okay.
Well, I think that's why, we had this discussion last year and I felt that it was important to, if this is going before council and they're making a final decision, if it really is for just this year, it's just this year. If it's, management of this fund in perpetuity, or until another major resolution gets passed, which could take some time. I think that it's only prudent to say, I still feel more comfortable with a percentage personally, because if you know what your budget is, the case was made to me in conversations last year that a percentage is a better way to go because it's a fluid fund. So if you say you're always going to have this certain amount that's going to be the grant funding, and I know we didn't necessarily go over what was allocated, but I can almost guarantee you that with these last this last year of grant rounds, that when you put these grant applications out there or the opportunities out there, we're going to wind up with twice as many requests as we have funding for. And if we have the funding, maybe we need to consider that. If you want to spread it around and you I think it's good to put a cap on it. I think that's realistic, because otherwise, if you don't, you may have organizations that can't spend what they said they thought they needed, So, it's a touchy situation, but certainly a percentage of the fund to me seems more equitable as it goes up and down in value, as opposed to a single amount. Other people may have other opinions about that, but that's just my observation.
So a question, and I've got at 12 o'clock, so I'm going to have to go pretty soon. If you, let's say we're doing a 2022 and we're going to set that amount up in August. So you only have 6 months worth of knowledge of how much you took in. I believe your calendar year is going to have to be 6 months of the year before and 6 months of the year, because otherwise you're basing a percentage on 6 months of that you don't know. So I think you'd have to do the last 6 months of the prior year and the first 6 months of the first year in order to, if you do a percentage, in order to know how much to go for the following year.
Mayor, do we have to vote on this today, or is it something that we can carry on over, just on the fact that I feel like as a collector, and there's not, Sue's not here as a collector to have her opinion in on this. I would feel more comfortable if we weren't making that decision today.
Right.
Well, I also think that you could base said decision, and I agree with Janae that, if we don't have to make that, set in stone today, then that would be preferable. But I guess the other question is it seems like there could be a day where there's a fund balance, right? And you subtract out any obligated funds, and then what that fund looks like essentially for the next year. And then you can make that decision about how much those allocations might be with that knowledge in hand. Does that make sense to people? Then it's not based on projections, or it's only based on what really exists within the fund and what is already allocated. So it's like, here's the bottom line, and then what has already been allocated, you subtract that out, and then you would know what your resources are for the next year. And it doesn't matter what the returns are or anything. It's only based on real money. And then the following year you have that special date. This is the bottom line date. These are the subtractions of allocations. And then you're actually dealing with real amounts in the fund as opposed to what you think might be in the fund.
So I have a bit of a concern there, just in that if we tied this amount to an elastic amount based on the fund, should we do the same with the amount we allocate for destination marketing? Should we allocate the same amount, and does everything need to be fluid then? Does that leave us any reserve? Does that ensure the longevity of this department? Or do we spend what we have without the measurement of return on investment? I think my other concern too is that I don't see the demand for those grant funds yet. I think in raising our amount to 125 from something like 30, If we saw a great amount of applications that are like, yeah, you know what, that's a great idea and we should fund like 5 more projects, I think that would have a little bit more weight with me right now. I think that's something we'll work toward. And when we see that demand, we can write a new resolution and say, this is the new amount that we think we should do. This is the budget amount that we have, that we see as an appropriate percentage. And this is what we see from it. Well, this is the return on investment we've been seeing from this 125,000. And I think that makes a stronger case for moving forward. And that's kind of where my thought process is. This is not a bad idea. This is probably not the right idea for right now. And I think we need some more data in order to measure and figure it out.
I agree
Well-
with you, Laura, on just the fact that, you know, the money that we're collecting to go into this pile, this money is to bring in more tourism. And so I agree with you that to bring in more tourism, maybe great other projects that we can fund. But it's frustrating when, you know, and again, like us as hotel people, we struggled through all this COVID, but we're still funding all this, and then we're just giving it all away. Where really what we want to use that money for is to enhance more people so that we can get more people to stay. So that's what's frustrating.
I will say that these places and attracting people here and getting them to stay overnight is a multifaceted thing. That is partially events, that is partially our cultural organizations, it is partially our economic development and the great things there are to do down here. And it's partially hotel marketing, it's partially city marketing. There's so many things that feed into that. So I don't want to discount any one of those. It's always a joint effort, but I understand. And I think this is why I've been so focused on return on investment in data, is that we need to measure what we're doing. We need to measure the return. We need to measure, we need to have our analytics in motion to say, you know, we're doing a big meetings and incentives and conventions push. What are we booking from that? And what are the room nights that we're getting at what rate? Is that marketing correlating with this? Is this event with our geofencing now measuring how many people come in and if they stayed at hotels, if they stayed for the day, if they had a sales tax impact, all of those things. Data is so crucial here, not just for us as, you know, measuring and balancing this fund, but also for our collectors and for figuring out how we distribute those funds to our receivers as well.
I'd also like to make sure that I believe Josh had said we could open this up, the grants to profit. And I believe that, and I didn't know that earlier. And, you know, I'm going to use Tom Drohan as a perfect example. You know, someone asked me a week ago, you know, I want to spread some ashes. I want to have 30 people go out on a boat. Do you know a boat available to take 30 people? And I think Tom Drohan's 2 boats that are pretty large is a great service to Gig Harbor. Now, those 30 people are coming here from Port Orchard mostly and from other places to go out of Gig Harbor. They're not going to come here and then leave right away. They're gonna, and some of them are coming out of state. So they're going to come here. They're going to go to restaurants. Some are going to go to hotels. That is, to me, a tourist related thing. And I don't think they should just be all nonprofits. And I don't know that distinction right away. And I'm waiting for MRC to give us good, clear direction. If we have that, I think there'll be more applicants coming, is my point.
Mhm.
Yes, as there should be. And I agree with Laura on the return on investment. You know, I've mentioned several times, I love the data. We want to understand that, you know, and so things that we've funded and that, you know, places that have gotten money, I would like to make sure that we are ensuring that they are a draw to this community. And so we're getting worth out of the money that Janae and Sue and you know, all the hotel owners and James, you know, are collecting. You know, I agree with that 100%.
Okay,
So anyway.
I have to go. So do you want me, I want to just leave it for you to go on. Do you want me to withdraw my motion or do you want to vote on it? Or I'll do whatever you see. If we need to do a special meeting, this group, I think, would invest in it. But if I just leave right now, I don't think the motion can go away unless I withdraw it. Go, Janae, you're on mute.
I think you should withdraw the request for the moment.
If you guys choose to bring it back, you can't, this same meeting, you can, but, so I can go on. James, are you okay as the second if I withdraw my motion? Oh, yeah. Say that again. James, are you okay if I withdraw my motion?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
I'm going to let you discuss this further.
Yes.
And it seems like I support this group. I'll let you guys discuss this further. I'm going to turn the chairing over to Laura because again, I had at 12 o'clock.
Thanks, Kip.
Thanks.
Laura, I just have one other comment I wanted to make, and that is that in the percentage pie chart, I'm not trying to threaten the reserve. I'm just trying to understand it. I don't think that it shouldn't be there. I do think that, you know, an appropriate reserve is great. But we don't have any idea how much that reserve is. And so, you know, in conversations with other folks that may or may not choose to have reserves, and I think we have a very specific reason for having a reserve. Other LTAC funds don't pay for municipal staff in many cases. The municipality is paying the staff, and then, you know, other dollars might come out of LTAC for publications or, you know, media, that sort of thing. We just have a different model. So I'm not trying to threaten the reserve. I'm just trying to understand it. So just so you know that.
Absolutely. And just as clarification on that too, we have this 50-50 general fund LTAC model. Essentially what we'd be doing with that fund if we didn't have that in-house is paying an agency a higher rate for the same services. So at the end, it does end up being a cost-saving move to combine those two needs for communications and tourism and save this fund some money as well.
Yeah.
So that's the intention.
And I'm a big supporter of having good people be able to live in the community where they work. So thank you for you and Josh for being here. That's not always the case. Sometimes we all have to like go from, you know, live in another place from where we work. So
Yep, I'll be canoeing in from Lake Bay, everyone.
yeah, nice.
So thank you for that. That's really, really helpful. Motion was withdrawn. And moving
Well,
forward.
I do have another question about this, and here again, just trying to understand the fund, and it will be helpful for MSRC. I know that the city can allocate funds through council approval like they did with the kayakers dock. That was $100,000 that came out of LTAC. There was not a lot of discussion about it. If that kind of thing is going to happen, then there should be some funds sort of pre-allocated, I think, in that pie chart, you know, for capital investments in cultural attractions, so to speak. If that is a thing that is a viable option, in which case that should be something that we take into serious consideration in this whole big picture look at the fund as well. So.
Yep.
I can
Josh,
address
do you have
that.
any input?
Yeah,
Okay.
the issue, and this probably speaks to your comments about the reserve fund too. The issue with lodging tax allocations is the only possible way, and this is for all cities and all tax anywhere, the only possible way to allocate funds is by application. So whatever the city applies for, whatever the grantees apply for, that's your only avenue to allocate funds. So you can't create a fund and say, this is our rainy day fund, or this is for future capital projects. The city has to come and ask you for that money by application.
Mhm.
And the reserve that we have is kind of manipulated by the city based on our request. So we ask for 400,000, knowing that it's going to create, you know, this X amount of reserve that we have. So city staff has some control over what that reserve looks like, but that's our only mechanism to manipulate what that is.
Mhm.
So yeah, so LTAC doesn't really have any control over how much is in the reserve because you're just reacting to whatever people ask for. So if there's $1 million in the reserve and people only ask for 500,000, then you're gonna have 500,000 left and there's not much you can do about that.
In the case of the 100,000 though, we weren't notified of that prior to it happening. it was done.
No, and you won't be when council makes a decision mid-year like that. What counts, the way the process works is once you've allocated money to someone, or once you've made the recommendation, council can change the amount of that allocation however they see fit. The only requirement is that they give LTAC 45 days notice so LTAC can comment. LTAC can't. LTAC can say, we think this is a good idea, we think this is a bad idea, but LTAC can't stop council from changing that amount.
But we weren't given that notification, were we?
We talked about it at the last meeting, and council won't take formal action on that 100,000 and for another few months or so now. So council hasn't done anything yet. They've just said that that's what they're going to do.
Because we didn't initially make an allocation to that at all. Did we, in our budget, we didn't allocate any money to that dot, did we?
It's based on applicant. So you allocated money to the city. So the city can adjust that however they want.
So
And that-
the city was the one who applied for that then?
Yes, and that applies to all of the grantees too. So like if you allocate money to the History Museum, I think we had this come up a couple of years ago. And the History Museum comes back to council and says, no, we have this other opportunity, we want more money, then council can unilaterally say, yeah, we'll give you another X amount of dollars.
But LTAC should have been notified about that the city was changing its amount, right?
Yes, and that's what we did at the last meeting. So that was your official notification.
Okay,
Or
that
we're
was not
changing that.
clear to me at all. I did
Yeah.
not understand that. And, you know, I think that needs to be made more clear in the future, because that was just kind of a bottom of the agenda item. And
Yep.
it was just said, and the way I understood it was that it was a done deal and we didn't have any discussion about it. We didn't have any right to discuss anything about it. I don't know how other people felt, but that's the way I did. So
Yeah,
I,
no-
you know, I'm just clarifying. And I think this meeting with MSRC will help us with that a lot, but that was not clear to me. So,
Yeah,
Josh, clarify if I'm wrong here, but we had the opportunity to discuss, but not necessarily change anything from that allocation, yeah?
LTAC they have the ability to discuss and then provide their comments or recommendation. So, and I think the mayor actually came back to council after that meeting and said LTAC was fine with it. But I don't know if there was a formal recommendation made or anything like that. But yeah, it is just a recommendation to council. You can't change council's action unless council chooses to do so.
Shall we move forward?
Move on.
Okay, onward and upward. The 2021 Visitors Guide. We have a print copy in hand from Like Media. We did not have creative control over this. I had a very small segment where I could edit all of the pieces. So I got 29 emails, I think on Thursday night or Friday night with a deadline of Monday. So I stayed up during the weekend just to get each one of those edited, both for content and clarity and correct information. I have some concerns about the pay-to-play structure that was instituted and how many people paid for a listing. I'm more uncomfortable with that just being in a year that's been very financially hard for everybody and having that be a revenue source. I'm not sure what that looks like going forward. We're currently examining our options. I think there is always value in a print publication. I would like to see it distributed to Gig Harbor residents in the future. I think residents are our best publicists. And if everyone knows what's happening, they spread the word massively. And as we know, Gig Harbor is a neural network. And so when one person knows something and has the correct information, it's very helpful. When people have incorrect information, it is not.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a massive opportunity for us. That is going to incur some cost. I think it's a great marketing cost to have the cost of a direct mailing of our visitor guide for next year. To note, this year, we were not able to negotiate a contract. The decision to go forward with a visitor's guide was made without the city. We were not able to get in any of the things that we usually negotiate for, which includes certified folder distribution. So this year, there's no plan to have them on ferries or at the at SeaTac Airport. If we do want to do that, that would be an additional $5,000 cost to the city. Usually that is something our publishing partner takes on, especially given the advertising revenue that they make. So that is a challenge for this year, and I anticipate that being a challenge for the years to come. Once there's a revenue stream, I think it would be extremely difficult for somebody who has decided to go forward with or without our input to drop that. So that is something to consider for the year to come. We may have 2 competing visitors guide, one official and one unofficial. We will try to do the best work possible to put out a product that is in depth, has an authentic sense of Gig Harbor, and has articles from the people that make Gig Harbor what it is. Throughout the year so far, in our soon to launch website, I've been interviewing people, everyone from TLC's Extreme Sisters on their favorite 5 places in Gig Harbor to the Gig Harbor Candy Company's top 5 recommendations for desserts through Gig Harbor. That kind of thing. I think that's going to be content development that really serves us better, rather than a piece from our local real estate company. I think content is important. And James, you actually emailed me about content this week, and I really appreciate that. I sent you a couple of recommendations on your new Vacasa listing of things to do in Gig Harbor that have a more local lean, rather than heading to the Museum of Glass, just to comment on Gig Harbor. But Stephanie, the History Museum is one of those destinations that we've included, that James is editing to include on those listings. So we have some challenges ahead of us on the visitor's guide. We are considering whether or not the publisher will honor last year's contract for certified folder distribution that they did not fulfill. So conversation continues. We will see how that works out. But that's unfortunate to me. I would like to see that, especially in this year where tourism is a big deal, distributed at the airport and on ferries. So more to come on that. Any questions, let me know. Our digital, we are launching our site. We have a great calendar of events. It is interactive, it is image-based. You can click on something and get full details. It is everything. So it's not just that really static list that we had on our old website that just had line items. It is a photo. It is a website that you can click through to buy tickets. It is an image. It looks good. It's taken a good amount of work, but it's there. I've also translated a lot of our Gig Harbor guide content there, and we've also eliminated our site host, site crafting, which saves us about $350 a quarter. So that's something that we can push back into digital marketing and just get more people, more eyes on that site. I'm also working on making a meetings landing page, which I've been calling throughout town to get appropriate setup numbers, capacity numbers from our hotels. Janae, I actually got to talk to you about capacity numbers too, and make sure we have those correct. But I want to see us build a base of meetings. And given we have a limited amount of space and hotel rooms, but that does not mean that we can't host small meetings with our meeting space throughout town and our hotel rooms. That provides a great base of business that lets us have a more elastic and increased leisure rate. And I just feel like that's a great path for recovery. So we're going to make a push for that. We're going to put some dollars behind that. That has been in our budget for this year. And so we're enacting that now. I'm working with C-Sound right now. Once the site is live, to redirect our digital marketing campaigns. They are getting me some creative, and we are off and running. So I'm very excited about that. Any questions on digital marketing, site launch, visitor's guide?
What's the web address for the visitor's guide again?
It will be visitgigharborwa.com.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If you type in Gig Harbor Guide, it will still redirect to that site. In about a week, I'm working with our IT department to transfer that over right now.
Yeah, I know that.
So we bought everything. We bought gigharbormeetings.com. So if you type in anything, it redirects to our site, and it makes sure that we've got a good amount of SEO and SEM terms covered.
Good.
All the
Just by
nerdy
way of
stuff.
update, we decided yesterday to hold off on meetings at the museum until our spaces are updated. We tried to get funding during COVID to do some upgrades while we were closed, but unfortunately that funding didn't come through. So we're working on that, but there's some major work that needs to be done before we can really promote effectively in terms of meetings and events and stuff. So, but I'll be talking to you separately, Laura, about another idea project that we're percolating. So, which could
I
help.
love that.
Yeah.
Also, just for everyone to keep in mind here, I would love your content for blog stuff. If you know something that's happening throughout town, or you have an idea of who can contribute to that content development, let me know. And that includes museum, that includes everyone. If you have a great expert, and I know you've got a Humanities in the Harbor coming up,
Mhm.
if you think they could be a really great guest blogger, awesome. I'm
Cool.
here to amplify everything,
Yeah.
everything y'all are doing.
Nice. Well, I am happy to say that both the Thunderbird film and the Shenandoah film got accepted to the
Yeah.
film festival this year. So that's cool.
Very cool. I saw that yesterday in an email from Chris. I'm super excited to see both.
Mhm.
Just a quick recap on press releases that have been out. Summer Sounds and Movies in the Park are out. We've got our brochures printed. We've got our signage in motion. We've got, we don't have any of our past years art files that are reproducible. They're all massively small JPEGs that can't be reproduced at the size that we previously have. So I created a new one from scratch. We're going to use that for this year. We'll go out for graphic design for a refresh next year because it's been quite some time. We did secure sponsorship from Virginia Mason Franciscan Health, who's been our sponsor in the past. They were looking at both concerts and movies. So that's great. We've got Kitsap Bank returning for popcorn for movies, and we have Windermere doing water for Summer Sounds. So that's super great. Our first concert is also the day after Gig Harbor's 75th birthday. So we have created a banner. The mayor will be reading a proclamation, and we're in line to celebrate that. So that's pretty exciting, and we'll be doing some press outreach based around that.
Laura, what's the actual day of
July
the
12th.
July 12th, and it was
It's the
1946, right?
70th. Correct.
1946, yeah. Okay, because we're gonna put it in the on the Did You Know on our reader board. So
We are also reproducing the NetShed brochures. It has been a while since they were done. We've still been handing those out with the information saying Ansitch will be restored. So that is shifted. I'm working with Cascade Print Media to redo those. And let's see. What else? So we've got upcoming press coverage. We will be the focused city for a weekend getaway in 1889 magazine for their August-September issue. I've been working with them on images and content of things to do. Naturally afforded everywhere to stay. So that's exciting. We also just hosted a blogger through Travel Tacoma, the Wild Explorer. She's got great numbers for a young affluent audience out of LA. California is a great target market for us. So that's exciting. And we've already seen some of her social content. We've also amped up our social content now that masks are off and people are around, and we're encouraging where to go and what to do. If you see something cool, let me know. I turned we popped into Heritage Distillery and found their hidden frozen hot chocolate the other day and made that part of our heat wave post. So all of those small things, it's non-boozy. It's great. Who knew? Kids can have a frozen hot chocolate at Heritage Distillery. Yeah, so all of those small things, let me know, and I will go create some content on it, and we will make a blog post and we will put it in the next visitor's guide. We want it to be fresh and engaging, and we want it to reflect who we are. So anything you have there, send it my way. Let's see, we are also taking a look at the communication strategy plan and taking a look at our existing content development. The Gigabyte has been on hiatus solely because of bandwidth. I can't until we have an assistant here again, but we also have a really inefficient process of putting that information out. It is really unwieldy. So what I'd like it to be is essentially a review of all of our content from the month. So instead of putting in sandwich coupons for a sandwich shop, we're putting in things what's going to come up in the next month, things that you can make reservations for, things that you can plan for, things that you can invite people to town for, and highlights from our social accounts. So there's an easier way to do that and make sure that we are amplifying our message. So that is in motion right now. We're all also just taking a look at our social content and the very divided audiences that we have, and trying to streamline those just a little bit so we know that city content goes out to residents who want information about public works, governance, everything else that we do. And our tourism site goes out to both potential visitors and people who love and live here. And I think that's an important part of what our outreach should be. So we had our pop-up concert, our trial run, that went really well. We had Redemption out last Friday night. And I'm not sure if any of you were able to make it. It was a really lovely time. I think everyone was super overjoyed. I saw more people dancing than I've seen in a long time. And I think everyone was really happy to see each other and be there in person and have that tradition return. So we were looking forward to those for Tuesday and Friday nights throughout the summer. And I think last but not least, just a call for ideas too. We are doing some summer outreach right now to short leads, to newspapers, to blogs and websites and digital editions. If there's anything that you have, I know Stephanie, you've got a lot happening too. Any ideas you have of things that are happening throughout town or that can make a great pitch for media, let me know. I'm also pitching long-term right now. So, or long lead, pardon me. So we're taking a look at October, November, December issues right now. I'm pitching ideas for that. So shoulder season is always a concern for us. Let me know if anything's going on and I can make it into a story about why to be here this winter.
Yeah, we're looking at public, like we have an ad going into Wooden Boat Magazine because it's going to be distributed at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival. So, we're trying to cast the net a little farther to people that would be very interested in visiting a city like this and seeing the project in action and whatnot. So that's been interesting to kind of do those views, but I know magazines have long lead times, so try to get ahead of the game where we can.
Stephanie, that's in
Appreciate your
September.
maritime pun.
Mm-hmm.
That's in September, yes?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can address? Any other items for the good of the order?
Good.
Awesome. As always, I appreciate you all. I appreciate your time and your input. Yes, please feel free to email me or call me throughout the month. We don't have to limit it to just these meetings. So I'm always here for input, ideas, direction. Let me know.
Yeah, I'd love to get with you about some of the data you've been collecting, because we have our zip code data, but not the credit card stuff. So it'd be interesting just to compare notes.
Yeah, I think
We'll
we
get
have-
together.
Yeah.
I actually, you know what, we can maybe add an item on the agenda for next month to just go through some of the big points there, so everyone knows that too. And I'm happy to do a more in-depth conversation privately too, but maybe I should just add that to the agenda and we can go through some of those lines of,
That'd
for
be great.
example, how something like Make Music Day did on tourism and people who visited Uptown.
Mhm.
So we can take a look at that as a good trial.
I mean, and Janae, I'd love to hear from you and Sue and James about how well, are you guys swamped? Are you busy? Is it just coming back? Or, a little bit of update on that, because that's always helpful for us to know, because like we have people come from out of town, but a lot of times they're staying with family or friends. But if we have a better sense, like if someone asks us, gosh, can we, stay somewhere? I always send them down to the Maritime Inn, or I say, we got some really great vacation rentals, but I know I need to get your materials down here too. We're adding another brochure rack because we've run out of space. So I'd love to have the hotel information and vacation rental information down here as well.
Yes, because it's finally picking up.
Yeah, good.
which is nice. So, but you know, again, in October, it'll get quiet until
Mhm.
about April. So
Yeah.
bearing through it.
Any of those ideas, if we have ideas for romantic travel or top romantic destinations for winter travel or cozy spots for romantic dinners and weekend stays, all of that stuff, great. I think fall pushes for, going up to Butler's Farm and doing a U-pick of, apple varietals from history and doing an itinerary. It's the same reason restaurants have menus. Like, we'll put it out there and we'll suggest it. And I think that's going to be really helpful for us. I also think that there's going to be a heightened appetite for getting the heck out of town, especially the last year. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of a longer extension on our typical travel season.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, I'm ready to go anywhere.
May I ask one quick question that's not related to all of this, but this committee, is Warren Zimmerman not part of this committee?
Is.
He was not on the distribution list for the meeting today.
He is. I'm so sorry if that did not reach
Yeah.
him.
I just was curious why, we're not getting much participation, and I think with some of the issues that we discussed today, I think it would be helpful to have more opinions, particularly from,
Yeah.
Sue, if she could come, and, she hasn't been able to be here for a while. And I'm just wondering, especially with the farmer's market and we can't get Mary to come on a Thursday, I don't know if we can change the date temporarily of this meeting, until she's available. But
Sure.
it would certainly feel better to me if we had more conversations from more people in this group.
Yeah,
So,
I agree with that. I will, Warren's been invited in the past. So this must have just been a weird distribution list snafu. I will check on that right now. Thank you
sure.
for mentioning that. He is most definitely a part of this. So, and he does have a recurring, just like all of you do, a reminder that this is when the meeting is each month. So I will check in and just make
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I think that's it for today, folks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for all you
Thank you,
do.
everyone.
I hope you get your assistant soon.
Me too.
Thank you, Laura.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.